how do teaching methods and techniques change over time? And what are the differences between things that we used to teach 10, 20 years ago to now? Well, let's find out. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of ZoukNerds. Today, we're going to be talking about different techniques and methodologies that we're using today, and also share some of the insights when comparing them to things that we used to do 5, 10, 20 years ago, and how that change has influenced our community. So, let's go. Bom dia, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ZoukNerds. My name is Alisson Sandi, and today we have our beautiful and amazing co-host, Gui Prada, once again.
Hello, everybody. Very excited for our talk today. Looking forward to it.
All right. So today we actually want to do things a little bit different. So we have, as always, been working constantly in our curriculum and trying to find ways to improve how we teach and how we deliver and how we plan the progression of our students. And in our latest conversations about that, we came across some realizations that we would like to discuss and share with you here, and hopefully this will help you if you're a teacher or also if you're a student, so you understand a little bit of the process. So to start with, we were reviewing our curriculum and seeing how different teachers actually teach and see the material differently. For a little bit of context, Guy and I teach at District Zouk in Washington, D.C., and with the help of our team and our students, we develop our curriculum, which, to be honest, it's an ongoing thing. Every month, every 2 months, we are adapting and we are changing and we are seeing what we can do better. But then, last year, Guy went into a world tour. And then after that, I took 6 months away from teaching at District Zouk in Washington, D.C., and we saw that there was a massive difference on how we used to deliver that same content and how other teachers were delivering the same content. So that brought us a lot of questions and enlightenment on basically looking back. How did we teach when we began our career as teachers? What were the priorities back then? And then how did that evolve?
Yep. And it has been really interesting to notice or to remember things we used to, or things I used to talk about in class or that I used to tell the students. Actually, today, I was teaching a private lesson right before the podcast, and I was looking into the notes because I take notes for the students after the private, and I was looking to the notes of the student that came, and the notes were from 2021, one of the times that she took the lessons, and there was a portion written there that I know that I don't say that way anymore. I don't explain it the same way anymore. So I actually told her like, oh, this part here, take it out. This part here, don't listen in the same way. So realizing, noticing how much it has changed over time. And I think the thing that changed the most is the pacing and the patience. It's a lot more regarding what is absolutely essential, and then realizing what are the things that we don't need to do right now, and we can talk about it later once this essential piece has been worked on. I realized during the travels there, like Alisson was saying, the way that people were teaching the same things that we were teaching, I found some of the ways more effective, really brilliant. I was like, oh my God, because I was watching the students and they were all doing this thing that we are having such a hard time getting our students to do, in the sense of conveying the message or the technique in a way that people would get it and execute it in their bodies in a comfortable way. And I was seeing these other people from other places doing the thing. And that was very inspiring to me. Seeing how other people teach the same thing made me realize what are these essential components. So in a nutshell right now, just to kick off things, I think the main difference is patience. I feel a lot more patient about the progression of the students than I think I felt when I started 7 years ago. What do you think was your biggest change, Mestre?
Well, for me, looking back when I started teaching, which was almost 20 years ago, the dance was different. That's a first thing. That is a big thing that we have to consider. Brazilian Zouk is a fairly new dance style when compared to other ones. So the dance has been evolving, and the teachers have been learning more about the dance and how everything comes together. So looking back, I think the focus was very much, well, if you are a dancer that came from other styles, we are going to teach you Brazilian Zouk. And so we started with your basic, viradinha, lateral, soltinho, basically going through the basics. Whereas now, if I look into it, I think in our beginner's course, we are more focused on the body mechanics, the music and body connection, and the body-to-body connection. So looking at our beginner's course in the way that we structure nowadays, the focus is so much more on the connection, the weight transfer, how the body moves, and how the leader body sends a message and how the follower body receives a message, which is kind of like a generic course, if you look into it, that if somebody did that course and then went on to another school to learn a different dance style, not Brazilian Zouk, they would still benefit from it. Because it's kind of like the basics of partner dance based on Brazilian Zouk, but not so much like the Brazilian Zouk steps and curriculums and like beginner moves. In the last month, I was in Oakland, California, working with Omni Movement, which is a beautiful school, a great community that they have there. And every week we were having instructor training. And during the instructor training, we were going over many topics, and this was one of them. How to teach beginners in a way that they feel like they are achieving progression, but at the same time in a way that we're not rushing them through the steps. So then when they go to like the next level, they actually feel good about knowing what they've learned on the first level versus feeling like they barely remember all the steps from the first course. That difference was something that they were really asking me. How do we make sure that the students progress, but at the same time, without overwhelming them with so many steps? And the other thing that comes with it is, how do we keep the students interested? How do we make them feel like we're not holding them back and making them go super slow? Because what I'm saying here is not that we make sure that the students are perfect. That is absolutely not. So we're not trying to create dance professionals in the beginners. No. As long as they are moving, having fun, and enjoying their dance, that's all we're asking. Honestly, like deeply, this is something that is very, very much different from what I used to do, for example, where before I wanted to make sure that my beginner students were like masters.
Yeah. I think when I got here in DC and I started teaching, I had this goal of our students are going to be dance supreme monsters, incredible things, float around and fly. And over time, I'm like, I want people to be proficient. I want people to, like you're saying, Alisson, get to the floor, have a good time. So that packing of content, we need to keep them engaged. We need to keep them interested. That was something that evolved so much, the idea of what progression is and looks like. I don't think we have figured out yet completely.
Never. I prefer to think that we have never figured out so we can continue learning. I think that's a better mindset anyway.
Yeah, because it can be a prison, eh? it can be a prison for some of us, some of our staff, some of people who teach this idea of keeping people engaged, especially in the smaller communities that I visited during the travels, where in the attempt of keeping people engaged, they would teach people what they thought was interesting, what they thought would keep people engaged. And that is what? Pattern. So it was a pattern-based teaching. But if you ask the teacher, what is it that you really want to teach? They will not say, I want to teach the pattern. They'll say, I really want to teach the mechanics. I want to teach people how to dance. But I think they would not be interested in that. So there's a lot of thinking that people will not like to work on the foundations of the dance, that they also will not be interested at a certain level. And then I'm constantly reminded by what Jaime used to tell us. The student will be interested by what you show interest in, but what you show passion about. So the students see that you are really excited about that, and they'll get to them. Of course, there's the artistry of how to deliver this content in a way that is appealing, and that is working on delivery. I think the thing that changed the most since I started was delivery. The techniques of putting the content out in a way that people see how fun that can be, because I'm having fun with it. Yeah. And the idea of progression that is not always up climb, but has always moments of staying flat and staying in that, we call it in our world, are the world of the variations, the world of the direction changes, the world of the transitions, where we are actually currently trying to change the mindset of some of our students and some of our staff. They're working horizontally. It's not progressing. It is progressing, but in a way that is not necessarily visible the same way that it is learning a completely new movement. And that ties into what we talked about in our last episode. So, idea of progression also changed a lot since I started teaching.
Yeah, for example, I don't want my beginner student to have perfect timing, but I do want them to understand what the down beat in the music is and what the up beat in the music is. That's it. Because they're going to be on and off time as they're progressing, as they're thinking and stressing about things, or as maybe a disconnection happens. But I want them to feel confident enough to hear the down and the upbeat and come back. That's it. Not perfect timing all the time, because I feel that some people focus so much on the timing that they forget to connect to the music, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Another example, I don't want them to have perfect footwork. I mean, what is perfect? I'm just using that word as an extreme. Perfect footwork. I want them to step comfortably, step efficiently, and have very organic, natural movement in their body, instead of having very mechanical, stiff, contracted movement that doesn't let them actually have fun or even breathe properly. I don't want them to focus too much on their connection, on their lat engagement and the core activation. I want them to make sure that they understand how to hold somebody's hand, how to connect to somebody's back, and how that adapts and changes over time and in different movements. Because we can't teach one frame for Brazilian Zouk. In my opinion, that doesn't exist. Every single movement has a different frame and a different level of tension, a different level of elasticity. So yeah, I think that's really a big change that I see from my beginnings to now. But also, unfortunately, a big issue that I see in multiple communities as we travel and we see people teaching. At the end of the day, a lot of the teachers that are teaching Zouk are real Zouk nerds, Zouk fanatics, like Zouk scientists. They will take 200 private lessons on weight transfer, projection, and lateral and simple turn. But we have to always remember that's not how our majority of students learn. So we cannot go on and on like scientists breaking down and trying to get people to like understand all the theories and the systems in the galactics and things like that, like we have to just accept them and accept that they are there to have fun. And as long as it feels good with those basic principles, like I mentioned, understanding enough of the music to go in and out of time, understanding enough of the body movement to take steps and move around the floor, understanding enough of the connection between the bodies so there is a clear communication being sent and being received. And that's fun beginner level instead of strict scientist beginner level.
Yeah, it's basically managing how much content you give. And I think that's the challenging moment when you give each piece of the technique. In the beginning, we have all this fire and we are so excited about details that we want to give them all. And it's like, whoop, like you say, né? Go straight past the students. And it's for us observing what is at this point necessary and digestible for this person right here. I think that's where the art lies in teaching people how to dance. Yeah, I see it a lot as teaching or learning a language. It's not realistic if you are taking 1 hour of language lesson a week, 1 hour and a half, for you in 3 months to know complex grammar, to put large sentences together. You're going to be able to say good day, good morning, hi, my name is, you're going to know the basic phrases. You're not fully able to communicate yet, but you are taking your first steps. And I remember talking to some instructors that are not so used to teaching regular classes about the patience and realizing that these people have only 3 months of dancing, 6 months of dancing, 5 months of dancing. I think the exposure to the process of learning how to dance from the beginning, made me more calm over time to realize I don't need to give that much content. I don't need to give that much detail. I actually need to give time, repetition. I need to leave space for repetition, for practice. And I need to develop a kinder set of eyes, like you were saying. The person's not on time the whole time, that's fine. If they can find a boom, amazing. If they are smiling and having fun, amazing. And that was something that only came over time. I remember when I came here, our level 1 had 6 weeks or something. And each week was a new thing, including Soutinho. So you imagine someone just coming to dance, yeah? And then week 4, the fourth, 5th, 6th hour, Soutinho. It was a complete chaos. I remember myself frustrated in class, like, man, people are not getting it. Like, what's happening? Of course they are not. God damn it. So I think the process of maturity in this life of teaching regular classes made me, I don't know about you, Mestre, but made me realize that we need to give time for the content to be absorbed. And the more that we can do that with our presence, we are there guiding that practice, I think the better it is. We did a survey recently with our students at the end of our cycle. And the number one thing by far that they said is the thing that they enjoy the most about our classes is the one-on-one time with the instructor, as that was number one. And the second one was practicing class. So the students perceive the needs that they have. But it took me this much time to realize that as well. It was very transformative for me when I went to Bremen in Germany to watch Olga and Fernando develop their beginner class and notice the patience, the amount of time that they were spending in this one thing, and noticing how the drops of detail were, like drops of detail, one at a time, very calmly. And then bringing that into my being for the patience. Because another thing too, another point that I think if you are listening to this and you are a instructor, you will resonate, if you made a class plan that has a beginning in point A and an ending in point C, you have 15 minutes left and you are barely finishing point B. So you're not going to make it to C. And all that anxiety hits, all the frustration hits. And one of the two things might happen. You might accelerate point B and present point C in like 5 minutes and then recap and demo. Or you will find a way to end in point B, but your sensation of how the class went for yourself is going to be, I didn't like this class. But the student didn't know you had a point C. The student was like, I liked it, but for your internal, you failed. And that is something in my journey that I'm still learning to be good with. That I didn't get to point C, and that's okay. And have point A be a thing on its own, point B be a thing on its own. So if I, for some reason, cannot go past A or B to C, that's fine. So I think that's the next step in this evolution for me. What do you think? What do you feel?
Yeah, so back in 2009, there was this one time that Alex Carvalho was in Australia when I was living in Australia and teaching there. And I was talking to him about classes and how to teach better workshops. Because for me, I was beginning to travel and get contracts around Australia and Asia and around the world. And there was this, I would say, habit or maybe trend that teachers would show the move of the class at the very beginning. Maybe the entire sequence, just to like get the hype and get people excited. But then he was saying 90% of the times, they never finish the move. They never finish the combo. So then there's two negatives about this. The teacher feels incompetent or feels that they didn't manage the time well. Also, the students feel that the teacher didn't manage the time well, or the students feel that they were not good enough. So there's a lot of negative things about this. I prefer, for example, to present a topic at the beginning of the class and go like, hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about this, and we're going to be working on this and this and this. And to start with, we're going to do this first part. And that's it. Just show part A. I always prepare part A, B, and C. But most of the times, we just get to part A, maybe part B. Because the students, they actually want to learn more. You don't have to deliver more moves, but you have to deliver something that will connect with their dance and hopefully transform their dance. To me, that's the main focus. So that is something that nowadays we don't see as much anymore in congresses, but I still see that in regular progressive classes. We're like, oh, today we're going to learn how to do viradinha followed by this, followed by this, followed by this. But then when you start the class, you have to still review viradinha because they did viradinha like 2 or 3 months ago. And that comes to another point that I've been talking to a lot of schools and a lot of teachers around the world. There is this issue with curriculum where people don't repeat the same move or family of movements over time. So, for example, I was talking to a couple of students over the last few months in private lessons. And when we were dancing, I asked them, when did you learn viradinha? And you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe 9 months ago. And I'm like, okay, so you're taking regular classes? Yeah, I take regular classes. So your teacher has not taught viradinha again over the last 9 months? Oh, no. We just go on to the next move, the next move. And that is not something that a lot of people think about. But for example, when I had my curriculum back in Melbourne, I used to have like the A, B, C, D, E version of the curriculum. So like each version had a different viradinha. Each version, like each 2 months, had a version of viradinha, a version of yo-yo, a version of bonus, a version of soltinho. Because those movements, they need repetition. they need revision. So instead of teaching viradinha on beginners and then never touching viradinha again, bring it back. If you have like 3 levels, beginner, intermediate, advanced, you're starting a community. Make sure that those core movements are present in every level. Not as a full class maybe, but viradinha has, I don't know, let's call it 10 variations. Lunge simple turn, 10 variations. Soltinhos, yo-yos. So what we do at District Zouk, we tell the students, so today we're going to be working on viradinha, but a variation of a viradinha that we haven't done yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to start reviewing the simple one and then move on. So you always have that hook to review for your students.
Yeah, this is something that is easy to forget, very easy to forget. I think because the curriculums are developed in a way, again, to keep people engaged, and there's not much time, we have just 1 hour, just this many weeks, it's easy to forget to go back. Again, with the language learning analogy, one of the most powerful things for learning a language is what? The review, the flashcards, the repetition system. So trying to be really mindful about these reviews, these flashcards, so we don't see a movement in one day and don't see it almost ever again. That was something that in our curriculum we were having a hard time with, because we would get to, let's say they had movement levels, which are in theory the higher levels in the curriculum, and we would ask people to do a bonus and they're like having a hard time doing bonus, and asking them to do a viradinha 90 degrees that is like in our very early courses, and oh, I forgot. So it was good for us to have our students not be able to do the things from the beginning, to realize we need to implement and review in the core of our teaching. And that is something that does keep people engaged when you work in transition. So one of the realizations that I had this time was more of a confirmation that the biggest challenge of everybody is transitioning from movement A to B to C to D. So bringing that into the content of the class became something paramount, is maybe the most important part. I remember teaching Basics 1, this past cycle, already with this new mindset and these new goals. We did viradinha in the 3rd class. And then in the 5th class, only 2 classes later, we combined the viradinha with something else. And people had that reaction. Oh. And you just did the viradinha after another movement that we had there into back to basic. And it was just that. So realizing that to the eyes, that was something else too. We think that the beginner students have the same eyes that we have, that they are getting bored the same way that we are. They are not at all. They are still in the state of wonder. If you just put a viradinha after, I don't know, a yo-yo back into a basic, for them it's just going to be so incredible and so challenging to do already. And from the start, we start developing these muscles of the transitions, because, and that was something, I want to open a giant parenthesis here, an idea that I gave in my last trip to Canada, where already teaching this way, what is this way? Is teaching the foundations of the dance, what are the building blocks of the dance, and just combining them. And then in the course, there were 2 people there really experienced, both teachers in their own communities, and they noticed it. They came after in dinner and like, I noticed that you are not teaching the patterns. I realized that you were doing these things, and they noticed that where was the difficulty for the students? The transition footwork. The footwork for you to change from the first track to the track of the follow, to the track on the side, back and around. And they came up with this thing. Have you thought about doing a class just on transition footwork? And I was like, oh my God, no. never thought about doing a class just for the transition footwork, which would mean I would need to come here with someone, do all the transitions, isolate the footwork of the transition, just work on that footwork, which I found super interesting. I don't know if you've ever done anything like this, Master, but just teach just the transition footwork and that is the topic. Amazing. And so something, again, constantly evolving, close parentheses. So that was the thing that we are trying to bring to classes, because it looks like from the teacher perspective that we are not progressing by just putting stuff together. But after these years, I can say with a high degree of confidence, you are progressing a lot by being able to teach and watch your students combine the movements that you taught. So if in week 2 you taught viradinha, in week 3 you taught, I don't know, lunge simple turn. Week 4, don't do something new. Week 4, combine the viradinha after the simple turn. Combine the lunge after the viradinha. You know, I think there's this franticness of doing something new every time that we are missing an opportunity to get people on the dance floor with more confidence earlier. Because I think that's the end of the day. That's where we, in Brazilian Zouk, have a hard time. Getting the leaders, especially, on the dance floor confidently earlier, because they feel they don't have much to do. And of course, if you teach them viradinha, simple turn, lateral, and basic, and they do each one of them separately from each other, of course, it feels very limited. If you are able, though, to help them transition from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the one, in all the different possible combinations, we have a chance there for more confidence, né? Yeah.
And something that I can also add to that is that we can always sandwich the movements. So you can kind of think about, okay, today we're doing bonus. So don't start from lateral, you know? Tell your students, okay, we're going to do bonus today. You already probably did the warm-up with the breakdown of the footwork and all of that. So then when we get to partner work, well, okay, everybody, we're going to start with basic step, lunge, simple turn, pause. Then we're going to do one lateral, and then we're going to do bonus. Mm-hmm. Or any other thing. Because that was something that at Omni, when I was there in Auckland, the teachers were asking me, how do I continuously bring back movements to revise without actually making them feel like they're going backwards? And I told them, just sandwich something that you're teaching. Maybe put it at the end, maybe put it at the beginning, maybe put at the beginning and at the end, things that they should already know, but you know that you're going to have to review over time. Things that your students are struggling. Sorry?
The Miyagi way.
Yes, exactly. So then you just need to think about, okay, I can do this new movement today. So I'm going to start from the movement that they are struggling with from last level. You know, you see your students, you know your students, you know what movements they need some help with. Or maybe one of your students have asked, you know, at some point, can we go back and review this? And you don't have to tell their students, hey guys, we're going to go backwards because you're not doing well.
Exactly.
You can just sandwich and make sure that the sugar is there in the middle. But then there's a little bit of salad here and a little bit of salad here. And then the sugar is in the middle. So then they eat the salad before they get their sugar.
Yeah, and it's a good thing because it seems like if you eat the salad before the main course, you get more, you know.
You get more full faster. You need less sugar.
Exactly. Man, there's so much to say about that. I developed this technique that every time somebody comes for a lesson, especially a private lesson, they're like, I want to learn toalha. And they come with me showing a video of me doing something. After watching the person dance, I make an assessment because another thing that changes over time as an instructor is the acuity of your sight. How much you can spot by just how the person build the embrace. The person build the embrace, I'm like, I know it's not going to work. and they didn't move any muscle yet. The strategy that I develop is when I see that is happening, I saw by the embrace about something that's not going to work, I do, okay, so we begin here. Viradinha 180 degrees into a 90-degree direction change in the basic from here, and then we got stuck in we never leave the viradinha 180 degrees because that's what actually we need to work on, but not because of the viradinha, but because the principles that exist in the viradinha 180 degrees or the linear basic 180 degrees, whatever direction change is the way. Now people are listening to this now, they will know that when I do that, they know that I am diverting their attention. But it has been so fascinating to observe so far how much the salad actually fills people up when you know how to deliver the salad in a way. Another thing that I was thinking, Alisson, as you were saying, is remembering another thing that changed over time as an instructor is the things that change over time as the son of my mother, realizing things that she used to say back in the day. And I was like, now that makes sense. And remembering my own instructors, how they did things. And they're like, that's why they did this way. The most powerful one, I think, lately was the realization that my instructors in Rio, they would rarely introduce the class like, okay, today we're going to do this. Or, so now we're going to go this way. They would close the circle and say, okay, put your leg forward like this. Arm up. No. So there was not like a intro to the new thing. They would just go into the thing. And then we realized we were doing something. And many times we were doing something that we needed to review. You know, so they would not say, guys, we need to review the lateral. Lateral is not working really well. No, they would call, okay, guys, face the mirror. Right leg is in front. Shift weight. Go front, step, pivot. And then, you know, this thing monkey see, monkey do. We were doing lateral and reviewing the lateral without even going to our heads like, oh man, lateral again, you know. And I think that's sometimes something that I observe in instructors and in myself, but I stopped doing that. I'm, you know, remembering this technique, remembering this way of approaching things. It's a review so powerful. The thing is, we have this fear that people will think that they are going backwards or stuff like that. So we need to come up with these mechanisms so they don't go into their heads, and them going into their heads mess up their learning process, you know. So that was a very powerful discovery with these years of teaching now, is understanding why my instructors did what they did, how they did, and the effectiveness of what they did. Nah. So super, super incredible things.
And as teachers, we have to understand that the students don't know what they don't know a lot of the times. For example, a couple of weeks ago, I had a student who booked a private lesson. I had already seen that student in the classes and in the social, and we danced before. But when they came to the private lesson, they had a list of things they wanted to work on, which is good. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But the list of things were counterbalance with a spin in counterbalance, one leg spins, and toalhas. Like I said before, I had seen that student dancing in classes and socials before, and I danced with that student.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, oh, okay, cool. All right, let's have a dance. I didn't say anything. I didn't shut it down. I just said, let's have a dance. We had a dance. And then after the dance, I asked her, so how long have you been learning Zouk? And she was like, I think 5 weeks. And I'm like, oh, okay, 5 weeks. Oh, well, you're doing good for 5 weeks. You got some of the footwork, you got some of the timing. But my question now is, why do you want to learn the movements that you told me that you want to learn? And then she told me, oh, I've been practicing with this other leader, and this other leader wants to learn these movements, and we've been trying together, but it's not working. So I just want to make sure I fix it so I can continue practicing with that leader. And I'm like, okay. So let's start the class. I've got a few things that I would like to address first, and then I'll give you some work towards the counterbalance and the spins. Because I'm not sure, to be very honest with you, I'm not sure that if I give you the counterbalance and spins right now, you will be able to actually social dance and follow it. Because there are a couple of things in your dance that I would like to address, like connection and the timing and the footwork, that without those things, the connection wouldn't work. It would be very choreographed. So then we started the lesson, and within like 10 or 15 minutes of me just breaking down the basic step, the weight transfer, the timing, her face was just like, oh my God, I didn't know. Like there was all of these things that my body was doing. And then she was actually asking, okay, can we do this again? No, wait. Can we go back? Can we do this again? I have a few questions. Basically, from coming to the lesson, wanting to learn those crazy high-level movements, we finished the class just working on viradinha, soltinho, simple turn. And then at the end of the class, she was like, can we have another lesson tomorrow? Can we have like 2 hours tomorrow? Because I want to understand now the yo-yo and the bonus, and I want to make sure that I can do all of them back and forth and not lose my footwork and not lose my timing and my balance. And then the next day we did that. And at the end of that lesson, she was already asking, what do you think I should be working next? What are the next techniques that you think that are important for me to learn? So in conclusion, she wasn't asking for those movements because she wanted those movements. She was asking because of a pressure that she felt from other leaders. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is that she didn't even know those other things were somewhat relevant to social dancing. But when I came and I showed it to her and how it feels good and feels good this way, feels good that way, and very, very much focus on, I'm not saying this is right or this is wrong. I'm just saying, do you feel how this turn was smoother? Do you feel how now your connection is really precise and you can tell when I'm changing direction or when I'm changing speed? And she was like, yeah, I can feel it. I never felt like this before. Or sometimes I feel like this with some leads, but not all the time. And just working like on her dance. And she was so happy. And she was already asking me, when are you going to be back here? Or when are you going to be in California or DC? I want to come and visit and take a bunch of lessons because like this is so useful. I never knew these things were important in my dancing. So as teachers, we have to have enough confidence that, one, we know what's needed at that time. And also we have to have some sensitivity on how to tell the students through demonstration and exercises and feeling what is missing versus going like, oh no, you just started Zouk. You shouldn't be learning those things. Those things are like for in 2 years. Right now, you need to focus on your basics. I could have just said that, but instead we danced and then I showed her a couple of exercises and the interest was coming from her. Look, forget about the counterbalance and the spins. I just want to learn this. Like I didn't have to tell it. So it's kind of like something that Gui was saying in a instructor training that we had at the dance loft. One of our staff asked this question and they asked, hey Gui, how do you deal with somebody who comes to a class, a beginner level or something like that, and they say, hey, I want to learn head movements. When am I going to learn head movements? And then Gui was like, you just distract them. Just go like, hey, come this way. I want to show you something here. Come. So can you recreate that, Gui? How did you?
Yeah, exactly that. People say, oh, when we're going to see the head movement? So like very soon. To get there, we need to prepare our bodies going this way here. And then we ended up going to, something foundational, but with this idea, not saying not now, not saying it's too soon. It's just like, okay, it's valid. We know it's cool. I like it, do it too. And we're going to do it soon. First, let's begin with this thing here and just go for it. It's very similar to the private lesson. Okay, we go 180 degrees this way. Pa, 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 pa. Very similar. I think this journey as a teacher taught us that the students are putting themselves sometimes in a vulnerable position, especially in private lessons, when they come to you wanting to learn something that sometimes they themselves know they might not be ready to learn. And you develop the sensitivity to notice the best ways to approach the person without saying that they are not capable of, and just saying that there are stages that you can go through to get to that point that they want to get, and get them excited about going through the stages. I remember in my journey as a student, I was excited about the stages because I knew and I saw people going through them and seeing their evolution, but most important, like Alisson was saying, feeling their evolution. I would social dance with them and felt good. So because of the environment I was in, I was not interested in skipping any step. I was actually interested in going through all the steps because of the feeling of it. So we don't have that much of an opportunity to have such a structured thing where people can observe the process in a more perceivable, calm way. I think end result is what drives people more. I want to get to this final point here. And it's something that over time, at least I started to bring people's attention to. When you observe a super skilled dancer dancing their demo or dancing their social dancing, you are observing the final result of a long process of study. If you want to get there, have the curiosity and have also sometimes the courage to come to that person that you admire and ask, what was your process? How did you get here? Rather than teach me the here. So you understanding the process, it might actually bring a lot of light bulbs and help you see something that you might actually prefer rather than the end thing that you were seeing in the person that you admire. I think that is something that would be so amazing if more people did, if they understood the process of those who they admire and draw inspiration from that process,
Or even just ask a question and say, if you were to go back, what would you do different? What would you have focused on more that now you're actually having to focus because you didn't focus at the beginning? After 3 years, I'm having to relearn my weight transfer because I've been flopping everywhere, or relearn how to control my head movement because I've just been like either too stiff or too relaxed, and I have pain and I have issues and all of those things. As an example, for the people who want to learn head movement, I'm sure every teacher and every student out there is like, at some point, they're going to think, oh, I want to learn the head movement. If a student asks me that, I'm just going to go like, okay, no problem. Let's do that. What do I start with? Body movement. Because what is head movement? It's the end of a flag. So if you think about a flag, there's the pole and there is the fabric. The head movement is like at the end of that fabric. So we need to work on all of this. So I'm going to work on body movement, understanding how to use like active top and passive bottom, understanding how to use active bottom and passive top, and give the technique and the foundation of the mechanics of the body to then maybe understand how to roll and how to do something, versus like, oh, okay, you want to learn head movement. Okay, so let's start like this. Tung, chick, tung, chick, and already get into it. Because they're not learning how to do it with their body. They're learning the pattern. And then if anybody does it differently with them, or maybe a little bit of time, or maybe a little bit rushed, they're not going to be able to follow it or to lead it. Because in the end of the day, the technique doesn't change, not very much, maybe a little bit, but it doesn't really change in all of the head movement patterns. The technique of passiveness, of what level of your spine you're using, all of those things can transfer from one movement to the other. But when you learn a movement without learning that mechanic, then as soon as there's a small change in the movement, that's it. It's over. It's broken. So yeah, you can kind of distract, but not distract in a way that you don't teach them. It's more like, okay, you want to learn head movement? This is what you need to learn. Yeah. You want to learn speed changes and dynamics? You need to learn your weight transfer. You need to learn your elasticity, your connection, how to understand, how to rush and then come back to the timing of the music, or slow down and then come back to the timing of the music. Because there are concepts and mechanics that allow for those things to happen. They're not just patterns.
Yeah, playing with the dynamics, né? And all these things reminded me of, in the journey of being an instructor, and all the things that changed reminded me of the things that I used to say and I don't say it anymore. Because that's it. Now, when we start, the excitement, and we have all these things that we find that is the correct way, the not correct way, the more optimal way, but then we realize there's a more optimal way, and then you keep learning through the process of teaching and through the process of learning yourself, classically going to classes and things. And then there is this big list of things that I used to say that I don't say anymore, because of this other realization that the students take what you say incredibly literally. So if you say to maintain the connection somewhere, they will maintain that connection no matter what happens. So it's like, I think that actually, now that we are getting to this point of the conversation, that we are getting to this conclusion, I think that might have been the biggest discovery or the biggest realization. How much people really are listening to you. Like, too much. When you say, keep the hand here, man, they'll keep the hand there, even if it's the most uncomfortable thing for them. But the teacher said that that's where the hand goes. So develop a way to deliver the content in which you say, the hand goes here, and it can also go here, to help develop the students the awareness that things will change, that things vary, while conveying the sensation, or trying to teach them, or trying to help them develop the sensitivity to notice when you put the hand here or there. I'll give an example. Peão. We used to say, keep the connection of the right legs. And then come people here for the private. They're doing peão with me. It's super strange, uncomfortable. And I was like, why? Can you explain your process doing peão? I was like, no, because you guys said to keep the connection on the right leg. I'm trying to keep it. And then I'm like, okay, do it now, but just let it happen. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it happens, it happens. And then the thing flows. So the person can execute the peão, but because they are fixated on what you told them, the execution suffers in terms of how it feels like. So that, man, for those who are listening, that was, I think, one of the biggest ones, one of the biggest changes. Really mindful with what I say, changing things, how I say things, when, and knowing there is this more lively awareness in my being that people are really truly listening to what I'm saying. And they are really truly applying to the letter what I'm saying. So bringing more options, possibilities, something that I've been trying to do, so people hear from the get-go there are more possibilities here that you can try, depending on who you're dancing with, at what speed, and how much space you have. All these things, you know.
And as we mentioned in the previous episode, ask questions. Talk to your students. Talk to your colleagues, the people that you work with in the school. Talk to other teachers from Zouk, from other dance styles. Ask how do they tackle these issues, or how do they improve their delivery, because there is so much learning on a daily basis. One of the reasons why teaching for me is something that I don't think I'll ever stop is because I always learn something in every minute of every lesson. So I just feel so inspired all the time. Often people ask, do you ever get bored of teaching beginners? Like, hell no. Hell no. Because I learn something different. And the classes are never the same. Because I let the students tell me, not with necessarily words, because sometimes they don't say anything, but I let the students tell me how to teach that class, with how they're progressing, with the struggles that they're having, or maybe actually with the questions they're asking. I don't control how the class goes. The students control how the class goes in the end of the day. When you look like precisely, of course, I am the teacher and I'm in control of the room, but I'm not in control in a way that I'm not listening, or I'm not observing how things are moving and how things are coming together. That is how I progress my class, either to go a little faster or to go a little slower, or to completely turn somewhere else and go like, okay, guys, actually, let's do a different exercise here, because this other exercise is the real reason why this is not working. So being open, having a plan is good, but don't be stuck with the execution.
Yeah, and this I think comes over time. Time and patience. So I think when you start, the plan is your manual and is your anchor and is your everything. Then over time you have, at least happened for me, the plan is just an initial guideline. They can change at any time. So that's also something that changed a lot. And looking at all these changes, when I reflect on them, when we're having this conversation, I wonder how it's going to be like in even 3 years from now. I think from 3 years ago to now was already so many different things. When I look at my notes from 3 years ago, I'm like, oh my God, this was a different person. You know, priorities change. The way you want to convey the dance change. The things you want for your community, not that they change, but you learn better ways to get to the goal that you have for your community. Prioritizing what is, it's hard to say what is really important because, you know, that's subjective. But priorities change quite a lot over time. And talking from a perspective of a regular teacher, on the perspective of a weekend teacher, weekenders and festivals and things, realizing too, what is it that I can give to people that engage people at different levels? And that's also another learning curve, but that would need to be a whole other episode. I think we are good with the experience of being a local teacher over time here. I think we had a lot of stuff to contribute, hopefully, to those listening who are thinking about it or who are in it already.
Alrighty then, guys. This has been another amazing episode, slightly different from what we've been doing before, because in this one, it was more like we've had meetings and we work together, of course, at District Zouk and other projects. And we thought, that we wanted to do this more in a sharing way. This is the experience that we've been going through, and hopefully that has helped you to guide you or maybe make you feel better about the struggles and how change is actually good. Change benefits you. And even if nothing ever changed, the dance didn't change, your teaching didn't change, the techniques didn't change, your students will change because they're not the same group in 6 months or in maybe 2 months. So accepting change and accepting that the feedback loop will always help you. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for listening or watching. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, everybody. And see you next time.
Ok.
Bye-bye.
Beijos, beijos. Abraços. Tchau.